I'll get to that.
Yeah, okay. You want we make Wes write for you.
Okay. Well, actually, he's in a video.
Okay.
She gave me a job.
My name is Cokey Huffman, and I dove for Dick Kimball most of my career. Don't hold that against me. I am now currently the chairman of the Judges Subcommittee for United States Diving. And as such, I am trying desperately to not only develop judges outside of you guys, but also try to get more information into the hands of all of you wonderful coaches that have to judge at these meets, because we are a long way off from getting neutral judges here. So in light of that, I spoke with Linda Paul, and on behalf of US Diving, they funded all 6 Fina judges to the zone meets this week, just to do this presentation and try to help you guys get a little bit better at switching hats when you're in the chair. We all know that you guys are the best junior coaches, and we can't thank you enough for what you do for diving.
Us specifically.
Yeah, everybody. But I do listen to feedback from parents and coaches, and one of the things that they have said is you have to get neutral judges to the zone meet. The zone meet's too cutthroat, it's too tight, the judging's compressed, it's not fair. I've heard that for years now. So instead of trying to come up with 44 judges to go to each of 6 zone meets, what I decided would be easier to do is to just help you guys figure out how to switch hats. I don't think anybody sits down in that chair and intentionally tries to cheat for their kid. But I do think as a coach, you tend to judge as a coach more than as a judge. And we're going to talk about what the difference is inherently. My background, I told you I dove for Kimball. I dove till I was 27. I was national champion 2 times, made the world team in 1991, and quit right after that. That was enough for me. I've been judging now since 2007, and I've judged the World Cup, the World Championships, Pan American Games, a lot of diving World Series, lots of nationals. So since then, I've gotten quite a bit of experience. And one of the things we wanted to do by sending a Fina judge to each of these zone meets is to open up your eyes about how Fina trains us to be international technical officials. And that's what we're called. We're not the judge from the US anymore, we're not the judge from Russia, we're not the judge from China. We are a Fina international technical official. And that's a critical difference in mind shift in Fina, because now, for semifinals, we can have non-neutral panels, which is a good thing. Still finals is going to be neutral judges only, so you're still going to run into times at the Olympic Games when you have less experienced judges on the panel, because those are the countries whose kids are not getting into the finals. But I think with this mind shift of, you're not from a country anymore, you're from Fina, we might be moving closer to having non-neutral finals. Can't promise that, but hopefully. One of the things I think is the hardest is for people to really use the scale. And I'm sure everybody in this room knows what the scale is, but I'm going to let Doe write it up on the board for me. And y'all can help. We can all help her.
Someone has better handwriting than
That's when we talk about the scale, why is that important? Well, it's important because it's divided up into categories. And one of the things Fina tells you to do over and over and over again is to watch the dive. What's your overall impression of the dive? How well were the 5 elements performed? And based on that, what category do you put it in? And if you approach it like that, pretty much everybody's going to come to the same general category. And that's what we're looking for. We're not looking for bingos on every dive, because based on where you're sitting, based on your preference, what you like, what you don't like, can change where you put it in a category. It's kind of like art. Some people think Monet's a great artist and other people don't. It's in the eye of the beholder, right? Diving is an art. And depending on what your overall impression of the dive is, will determine where you go, where you think that dive lives in the scale. gonna backpedal just a little bit. Because in a zone meet, such as this, we have to really consider the context of the contest. And one of the things I was taught a long time ago by a guy from New Zealand, and this is his real name, Robin Hood, is that judging can be approached like concentric circles. Okay? So if you're, I'll make it small, but if you're in here, that's probably a standard you're looking for at like the Olympic Games.
That's good.
If you're out here, that's probably something you're looking at, maybe lower international events or senior national events. You're right, you're looking for this kind of performance. Then you maybe get out here to where it's like upper juniors, and now you're way out here for our little guys, our beginners. Now what does that mean? What that means is somebody who's doing a good dive here, it better be darn good. Somebody who's doing a good dive out here, it might have all the makings of a very good dive mechanically, but they went over.
Good.
Tim's excellent. Good, very good.
I got my words right.
Good, very good, excellent.
That's it.
Good, satisfactory, then good.
Good.
Then
Good.
very good.
Good, very good, excellent.
There you go.
Got ahead of myself. Very good.
So, does that make sense to everybody? So when you're judging 11 and unders, are you expecting them to be perfectly balanced and jump as high as Abby Johnson and have perfect form and a perfect lineup?
Yes.
That's a coach talking. We're looking at just 5 elements. You guys are looking at 20 elements, right? When you're coaching, you're looking at 20 different elements, if not more, of how to coach that dive and make that diver better, right? What we're doing is we're looking at 5 elements, which I'm going to write down in a minute, and we're just giving you feedback about how well those elements were done. We're not trying to fix anything. We're not coaches. We are simply evaluating the dive based on how Fina has taught us, putting it in a category, and that gives you, the coach, feedback, right? That tells you, is my kid very good, or is my kid a little unsatisfactory still on this dive? So when you're talking about the concentric circles of judging, you really have to pay attention to what you're judging. If you're judging 16, 18 girls, yeah, you know, they need to be getting in this range. So you're not going to be real forgiving on a missed hurdle, say. You might take the whole 2 points off. If you're looking at an 11-year-old who, you know, jumps great, spins great, goes in like this, that still could be a good dive. Because did that 11-year-old miss this, like this, because something else was wrong and they couldn't make it? Or did they miss it just because they came out early and they were a mile high? We see that all the time with the senior divers, right? They pike out, they leave like that. Well, that's not really going to take you down here. That's just one element of the dive. Okay, so let's talk about what those elements are. Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Takeoff. Approach.
Approach
Okay, hold on. So we got takeoff,
Giving a step.
and we got approach.
But you're not supposed to
There's
worry
5
about the
of them.
approach when you're judging.
Flight into the
That's
air.
the starts from the
Okay,
takeoff.
flight.
Approach-
Position. Approach the hurdle. Takeoff's more their connection to action.
What's
What
the
about
one?
position? Position.
It's up here.
Stance.
Starting position.
I thought you weren't supposed to consider
Okay.
that.
See, my writing isn't any good
Said
either.
that, blow that whistle.
Okay. I heard somebody say position.
Yeah, I
in
said
here.
it.
That falls under flight.
Flight. Okay.
Okay? That's where that goes. So let's talk about each one of these things. And by the way, before we go there, each one, interestingly enough, you can deduct a half to 2 points. Well, that's interesting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What do you know? Right? So for each element, you can deduct a half a point to 2 points for what you don't like. So let's talk about that. Starting position. I'm on the board, I turn around and I'm like this. That's not really aesthetically pleasing to me, personally. So I might take a half point off of that, just because I would like to see him standing tall, looking confident, right? The approach. We've got these crazy hop hurdles, right? They can either be brilliant or they can be all over the place, right? So what do you do with that? I mean, if they totally, completely miss the hurdle, of course you're probably going to take the whole 2 points. And that's probably going to affect some other things down the line, right? If they miss their hurdle that bad. But if it's just a little bit of a miss of a hurdle, maybe half a point. Okay, your takeoff. This also goes basically with your approach and flight in between. If you're seeing a hyperbole like this, and you're sitting in the chair and you're going, that's not what we're looking for, right? And that deserves a 2-point deduction because distance is super important, right? That's what's going to help make the bag. Their flight, which also includes position. So let's say they take off great, beautiful high jump, gorgeous reverse dive pike, and I go and miss my legs. Or I'm doing a reverse dive tuck and I go. That's not what we're looking for. We are looking for toes being touched. We are looking for a tuck position being shown, kick and firm. So many times these kids aren't even touching their toes. And I think it's more important that you emphasize that with the younger kids because if they don't learn it there, they're never going to do it right up here. They're just not. We all know the older the kid gets, the harder it is for them to change things. So am I saying deduct more on the little kids for that stuff? No. But what I am saying is don't ignore it. Do not ignore it. Take off for it. Okay? Remember, you're giving feedback to each other too. This is peer feedback here when you guys judge each other's kids. All right, entry. A lot of times this category gets overscored, right? A kid's doing crazy things all up in the air, terrible mechanics, looks terrible, goes, and he still gets a 7. That's not really what we want. It's just one element. So if everything else is not good, and he rips it, it's probably low satisfactory, high deficient, because 4 of the 5 elements weren't very good. So what's the best way to do this? The best way to do this, and this is how I approach it, everybody does it a little differently, but I'll just share with you how I do it. I'll watch a dive, and I will, based on my overall impression, I don't pick on anything over here yet. My overall impression, what did I think of that dive? Was it like, wow? Or was it like, yeah, it's just okay. So I'm probably down here, right? Now, I put it in the satisfactory category. In my mind, it was satisfactory. But why? Why did I go down here and not stay up here? What about the performance of that dive did I react to that made me put it in that category? Then I go, okay, well, their toes weren't pointed very well, and there's a little twist on the bottom, and, kind of a little back from the board. Okay, so it's probably low satisfactory, 5.5. And I do all that in 2 seconds. Just kidding. It takes longer than that. But you got to do it fast, right? We're the only sport in the world where our athletes, our coaches, our spectators, our parents get immediate feedback. Immediate. Gymnastics has to go into a room and talk about it for 5 minutes. We're expected to sit in the chair, do all that, and get it right. That's how good we divers are. So, anybody have any questions about that? Yeah.
So again, I completely agree with you on a lot of this, but so if we see the best out of the meet, right? It's high, it spins fast, it's got beautiful positions, whatever. They miss their hands on the entry and it completely explodes. I would be just fine giving that a name.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question. Anybody in here think that an 11 and under can do a dive for a 10?
Yes.
Everybody think that? Anybody not think that? Because I'm going to whip you if you do. I'm just kidding. Absolutely. Again, an excellent dive for an 11 and under is not an excellent dive for a 16, 18. Right? We expect a little better excellence from a 16, 18-year-old kid. But you see some of these little guys doing really good stuff, really good mechanics. You need to reward them for that. And you also need to give the lower feedback to the divers who aren't doing it right. And that's called spreading the scale. And we want to do that a lot, just not on the same dive. Right? So,
Can I
do a quick follow-up
Yeah.
on what Alex's point was there, sort of relates to what I was thinking. Great dive, really great dive, and then as it hits the water, it has a huge twist, almost 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Now, by what I'm gathering here, the most that you're gonna take off for that twist at the very end, since it's only in one element, it's in the entry that they went crazy, let's just say.
It's
Okay.
also
Yeah, can you debate that's part of two?
Well, let him
For-
finish.
For my hypothetical purposes, I'm saying it is during the entry that this dive twists and almost reaches fail.
Okay.
So what I'm gathering is that the most I would take off of that is 2 points for the
Well-
twist, even though it was 89 degrees twisted.
Okay, but I'm gonna say a couple things. Number one, if it's really just a lineup issue and mechanically everything else was great, then yeah, it's probably a full 2-point deduction. However, based on the dive, you might have been right at 6.5. Right? I mean,
Right.
it was high satisfactory. It wasn't good, it was high satisfactory, but then I saw that. I'm gonna take the whole 2 points. It moves you down a category.
Right.
And that can happen. But so, what I'm trying to tell you is that even though it's one element and it was bad enough to take you out of the category and down one.
Understand.
Make sense?
Understand. In my head, it has occurred to me though, if you're 1 degree away from a failed dive, that's a 1.
Well, again, it depends on
Which I'm wrong.
what causes the twist.
Right.
What causes the, did they come off crooked and it was just crooked all the way
That's
through?
a whole different, that's a different hypothetical.
Right.
The argument is that traditionally, when we see a dive that we have to debate whether it was failed or not,
Yeah.
it's very difficult
It's
as a
not
judge
4.5.
to decide it's not failed and then give it a 4.5.
Well,
For debating, it's usually a 1 or a 2.
And I agree, and this is an interesting rule, because that's one of the only rules that if you see a 90-degree turn, it's fail, right? We've got rules where if
by
you,
90 degrees, it's failed too, right?
well, yeah, it could be.
91.
There you go. But again, how much does it affect your overall impression of the dive? I can tell you, I've sat and watched, some very good world-renowned divers go up and do a frickin' 12 top, beautiful in the air, and they go,
Right.
Chinese are notorious for it. And you literally sit there in your chair and you go, what do you do with that?
Right, that's what he's talking about.
To me, it's a
And I would
maximum
tell
of
you,
2 points.
in that particular example that I just gave, where you've got a world-class Chinese diver and they go up and everything's good, but you see that, it probably puts it down in the good category. Even though they smoked it, even though they're Chinese, even though they're fast and quick and all that, I'm probably not up here if I see that. So that's what I mean. Something like that can move you out of a category. It might even move you down 2 categories if it was, there was something else going on. They twisted in, they lost their leg, something like that.
Ultimately, it's all the entry.
But that's
though.
on the entry, yeah.
Well, if they're losing their legs in the air and
Right. But on the entry, it's just one element. You can
Yeah.
only take 2 points for one element.
right. But again,
Yeah.
you as the judge, how grievous was it to you? How much did it affect your overall impression of the dive? And if Doug says, man, that I was here, but now I'm like here because that was horrible. That's his
A 6
opinion.
point deduction.
And guess what? He's one of 7 or 5 that has to equal 3, right? You only have to get the right 3 scores to count. And you work as a team, and that's why we say all the time: 7 equals 3, or 5 equals 3, 11 equals 5, because there's a reason there's so many judges. Everybody has a different opinion, a different view, a different eye, a different taste. So hopefully, by having 7 people working as a team to get it right, you're going to get the right 3 scores to count. And when you get the right 3 scores to count, you get the right finish order. And that's what we want. Okay? So let me talk a little bit about compression of the scale.
Can I make 2 quick announcements
Yes.
I forgot about? One, we don't want to surprise your parents, where we have an entrance fee for parents, not for kids. So if a parent comes in with 2 kids, the kids are free, but the parents got to pay either $5 a day or $15 for the week. So I just don't want to surprise your parents. If you guys want to let your parents know,
Can do. To be all short now.
Yes,
Yes.
Now that
we'd have
goes
to
to the
know-
diving judges program.
Oh.
There you go, getting a little slice.
And then coaches social tonight, 7 o'clock.
Marriott.
When?
Yeah.
Tonight?
Yeah.
Tonight.
Oh.
Look at our schedule. What else wants to do it?
You can come over at 9.
Yeah. No. It'll start at 7. It'll be Marriott right up the street.
There's a little pub in Marriott, it's called On the Rocks.
Right up the street.
Walk over there.
Start at 7. I believe everything is on Doug. And then
Some of it is on me. When I go home, I ain't leaving my credit card, so you better hit it while I'm there.
so get there early, drink lots, and then slow down at the end. Yeah, it'll start at 7. We'll go until everyone leaves. So those are just what? Any questions on that? Those are just my 2 quick things. Sorry.
That's okay. All right, I'm almost done. So I just want to talk about a couple more things, and then if you guys have any questions. So everybody's been in an event where the judging scale's just gone, and everybody's doing dives between 5 and 7. We've all seen it happen. By the way, the number of dives that Fina says you can dive before you reach judges fatigue is 210 dives. So if you're judging an event that's got 270 dives in it, you're liable to get compressed. It's very easy to do because you are getting tired as a judge. It's not because you think you just want to keep your kid in it, it's because you're getting tired. But what does that do when you compress the scale? Anybody?
Thanks to the GD game.
Yeah, but what else does it do?
Score low, cheats the kids.
Cheats the kids. If you're doing this with the scale, then that means all the divers that should be down here are staying up here, and all the divers that should be up here are staying down here. So you're bringing down the good divers and you're bringing up the less skilled divers. And that's not fair to you, it's not fair to them, it's not fair to the parents, it's not fair to anybody who's worked to get to this meet. So it's super important that you, when you're in that chair, really concentrate on trying to award the dive what it deserves, putting it in the right category where it should live. Yeah.
I've run into this at zone meets, and I'd be curious to get your impression. Zone meets is the one meet, well, other than regionals, but there's a higher concentration at zone meets, where you have the nation's best divers with divers who are not even close to being the nation's best divers, competing in the same event against one, and applying the same scale to every one of those divers. That it's very easy to judge the very good divers on one level, go on to 6, 7. And then you can have in the same event a diver who made it in the very last spot out of regionals, or there's 14 kids, and so everybody in that event made it, and they're doing a dive, and you can tell they aren't a very good diver, and they got vertical, they give them a 5. And then you have a very good diver in the same event, like, oh well, the approach wasn't exactly right, and the takeoff was a little forward, and we'll give that diver a 6. So you have 2 dives that are on really completely different ends of the spectrum, but getting rewarded in the same category, very close to one another, even though there ought to be a 4-point spread between those dives.
That is the definition of compression, right there. Just because you have a 13-year-old kid who dove at the Olympic trials diving against a 13-year-old kid who started last week, doesn't mean your critical thinking changes. It doesn't. You still judge those 2 kids the same way. So if the kid that went to the Olympic trials does a dive for 8s, give them 8s. If the kid that started last week and holy crap, they made their double, 5, no. But where does it really live? Was it really satisfactory, or was it maybe a little efficient? Based on, in comparison, who they're diving with. The kid that's just learning, who gets the 5 that really probably should have got 4 on that dive, isn't learning what you want them to learn. They're not chasing that good diver anymore because, hey, I got 5, that's good, right? So you want to make them hungry. And there's a couple ways you do that. One, you reward the good stuff you see. So there's good divers out there. I know who's in this meet. And there should be some 9s and 10, maybe even some 10s thrown this week. And I also know that there's some younger, less experienced people here that probably won't be getting out of the satisfactory category. But it's really critical that you guys get that right. Because as Aaron demonstrated perfectly, we tend to do that. We hold the better kids on this higher end scale, and so then they don't get what they should get. And then we hold these newbies, they're like, well, he's got potential, I'm going to get that a 5, it's like pretty good. But really the spread between those two dives should be more like 2.5 or 3 points. That's where compression comes in. Does that make sense to everybody? And it happens naturally, I mean, like I said.
On the other end of the scale, there are lots of great divers in this meet that are going to do bad dives.
Yep.
And to make sure that you apply the same critical note to not be afraid to give a good diver a bad score when they do a bad dive.
Right.
Because they're just as capable of doing bad dives as the newest diver.
Yeah. I will tell you, I judged Diving World Series last year, and it was down to Cubo, David, Ladaya, and Thomas Daly. And Thomas Daly got up and did his last dive, which he no longer does. It's his back arm stand back twister, which is it's just junk. And it's the finals. It's the last dive. He's got his dive, and then David goes, and then Cubo goes, and they're like 12 points apart. Daly goes in. It just jumped. I mean, it was sideways. It was cast. It was over. It was low finishing. It was horrible. And I sat there in my chair going, I'm the only one that's going to give this dive what it deserves. And I knew it. And the whole rest of my panel, all my teammates, sent me out to pasture. I gave it a 4.5. I had it like at 6.5, 7. I got booed. But I will tell you, the Fina observer after the event came up to me and put her arm around me and said, you were right. Sometimes you're right. Sometimes you can be the outlier and you're right. Sometimes you can be wrong. But more likely, if you're coming to the conclusion from the right places, by looking at the elements and putting it in a category and applying your deductions, you're going to get it right. Okay, 2 more last things and then we're done, unless you guys have questions. One is everybody familiar with the tube rule? The new tool rule? Understand how it works? We understand what it's for?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Fina passed a rule called the tube rule, which is if you feel that a diver is unsafely close with their head, not any other part of their body, just their head, then you, as a judge, can award them a 2, put your hands up. That lets the referee know that you thought it was too close. And if you have 7 judges, if 4 of you do it, all the other scores go to a 2. Now, at Olympic trials in men's synchro, Christian Ibsen did a reverse, I was execution on his side, and he did a reverse 3.5 that pretty much he hit his hair. And everybody knows Christian's hair is about that long. And I gave him a 2. Because, now I got thrown out, it didn't matter, I was the only one that gave it a 2. But I let Christian know, and I let his coach know, that I don't want to see him any closer than that. That's too close. And he came up to me and thanked me. He said, I know I get close on that dive, thanks for doing that, because it's going to make me move it out. So don't feel bad. Don't feel like you're punishing anybody. You're doing the right thing to give them that feedback. The last thing we need in this sport is another dive. Okay, synchronize. Are you guys doing synchro here? No. Okay, then I won't even bring that up. But do you guys have any questions for me? I'm going to be here tomorrow. I am going to observe some panels. I don't know which ones yet. But if you see me observing your panel, please, right after the event, just meet with me for like 2 or 3 minutes. I won't take a lot of your time. We'll just talk about how we feel we did. Do we think we got them in the right order? What was challenging, what wasn't, and we'll go on from there. Okay?
Do you want that as a panel or as an individual?
Yeah, as a panel. As a panel. And if there's A and B group, I know it'll be hard for the A group to remember to come, but try. Try to come and just meet with me right there real quick. Okay? Thank you all for letting me come and do this.
Great.
Good luck to everybody.
If anyone